and girls. A special hello goes out to the director of media for the Boston Reds alumni, Mr. Mark Orland. Nice to see you, Marky.
Welcome to the Pro Hockey Alumni Podcast, the home of behind-the-scenes interviews, stories, and memories that celebrate the heritage of the great game of hockey. The Pro Hockey Alumni Podcast is hosted by Mark Willand. Welcome to episode 41 of the Pro Hockey Alumni Podcast. Today, we discuss the rich tradition of professional hockey in Rhode Island as we prepare for the 19th annual Rhode Island Reds Reunion on August 4, 2019. More than 24 former Providence Reds and other hockey luminaries are expected to attend the event at Goddard State Park in Warwick, Rhode Island. Ticket info is in the show notes and also mentioned in the show. Among those expected to attend and receive special awards are Boston Bruins alumni Rick Middleton, Ross Brooks, and Rhode Island native Noel Acciari. Today we talk with Buster Clegg, a fixture in Rhode Island hockey for over 50 years and the president of the Rhode Island Reds Heritage Society. We'll discuss the glory days of pro hockey in the old Rhode Island Auditorium and such future NHL greats as Ed Gaicomin, Johnny Bower, Orland Kurtenbach, and many more. We'll also have some funny anecdotes from Rick Middleton on his memorable 73-74 season in Providence. Please remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and join our email list to get classic hockey news, updates, and specials. To contact us, please visit our website at prohockeyalumni.org. Now, let's talk Rhode Island hockey with Buster Clegg. We're back on the show, and we're real happy to have a great name in Rhode Island hockey, Buster Clegg, who's the president of the Rhode Island Reds Heritage Society and is coordinating the upcoming reunion we'll talk about in a moment. Buster, thanks so much for being with us on the show today.
I'm very, very charmed and pleased to be here.
Buster, you grew up in the Rhode Island area and played hockey, eventually becoming captain at the University of New Hampshire. What was the hockey scene like as an amateur hockey player as a kid growing up in Rhode Island?
Well, I was in awe of the American Hockey League. The Reds played at our rink in Providence, the old arena, Rhode Island Auditorium, and it seated about 5,300. And it was jam-packed every Sunday night, and I got a chance to go to almost all of the games as I was around 12 or 13, 14 years old. And I just was captivated by the style and the whole ambiance of the rink, and it was just a great, great experience.
You can never recapture days like that, going into the Rhode Island Auditorium, chicken wire, smoke,
right.
No heat. You have to love the game, and the fans really did throughout the duration of the Reds franchise. Talk a little bit about that, and the players loved it too, of course, as you know. So talk a little bit about that bond between the players and the fans, and just that whole atmosphere that you referred to.
Well, the chicken wire helps because the glass nowadays sort of divides the fans safely, and I might add, from the ice and the flying pucks and all that. But the players are able to hear some of the discussions among fans very close by, criticisms, praise, and stuff like that. And the sightlines at the old auditorium were marvelous. I mean, you felt like you were in the game. It wasn't 25, 30 row deep rows, but it was about maybe 10 or 12, 15 rows deep. It was really great, and the players loved it here. The fans were great. The players got to know the fans, and the fans were so good to them that after the hockey games, there was no private exit for the players. They had to walk through the lobby. And in walking through the lobby, they would be stopped and chat with the fans, and it became the fans felt like they were part of the team, and the players felt like they were part of the fans, and that's why so many of them, when they retired, decided to stay and live in Rhode Island for the rest of their lives.
Buster, when you were a fan, growing up before you, eventually we're going to talk a little about your own career, which ended up being general manager of the franchise, which is a great story in itself. But as a fan, you're going to watch a team there was a 6-team NHL at that point. So the caliber of play was extremely high. You're talking about the second best league in the world at that point. Talk a little bit about some of the great players that you witnessed while you were a fan.
Well, while I was a fan, I witnessed Johnny Bauer, the great Johnny Bauer goaltender, who had to stay in the American Hockey League because of lack of vacancies in the National Hockey League. Mm-hmm. He finally got his break when the Toronto Maple Leafs signed him at age, I think, 34. And Johnny went on to win 3 Stanley Cups. Johnny and Terry Sawchuk were the tandem team of goaltenders with Toronto Maple Leafs for about 4 or 5 years, mm-hmm. and they captured every conceivable title that you could you imagine. Best goaltenders, most saves, most shutouts, that kind of stuff. Really good. He was one that I remember very dearly. Fernie Flaman was a great player, and my boss later on. Mm-hmm. Fernie played with Hershey for a while, but then he made it big in the NHL. Guys like Don McKenney, terrific. I could go on and on and on. Guys whose names probably people wouldn't remember because I go back so far. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, they were wonderful people, and we had, as you recounted for us, there were 120 jobs in the NHL. So we got, in the American Hockey League, we saw the next best 120 players on a regular basis, and that was really something to watch these guys. And some of the teams, like Pittsburgh, was stacked with Toronto Maple Leafs players. Okay, Hershey was stacked with Boston Bruins. Our team was one of the few independent teams. Mr. Louis Peary, the owner, was quite an independent guy, and we took our shares of Calder Cup championships as an independent team, with probably a few on-loan players from the NHL, but essentially it was a franchise-owned team, really.
That's very interesting. I did not know that, and very interesting. In your own career, Buster, you graduated from the University of Hampshire, as I said, a very accomplished hockey career there. You come back to Rhode Island, and you land a job I believe, in public relations with the Reds franchise. How did that all come about?
That was by accident. I had majored in English up at UNH, and I played hockey. So those were 2 prerequisites to getting the job, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I was trying to network at that point, and I knew of a man with the Reds, George Patrick Duffy, who everyone was the Reds broadcaster. He was the PR guy. I wanted to meet with him. So one afternoon in June, just after I graduated from UNH, I went to the Auditorium, and there wasn't much going on in the summertime there. It was not air conditioned or anything like that, the building, so it was kind of a downtime. But I asked the receptionist, the lady, if I could speak to George Patrick Duffy. She said, "Oh, he doesn't work here anymore." And I said, "He doesn't?" And she said, "No, he went with Eddie Fainer's King in His Court for a 4-man softball team." Mm-hmm. I said, "Well, when is he going to return?" She said, "We don't think he is going to return. He's on a nationwide tour." I said, "Oh, well, as long as I'm here, is Mr. Peary in?" And she said, "My gosh, yes, Mr. Peary being the owner." She said, "Boy, you're lucky. It's a Friday afternoon. He seldom comes in on Fridays at all, summertime." So I got in to see him, and we struck it up pretty well. I told him I majored in English and hockey, and he started to ask me questions. And he asked me if I wanted to go down to Washington in the wintertime, in the Eastern Hockey League. He had a farm team there, the Washington Presidents. Mm-hmm. And I thought about that, and for some reason the vision of Slapshot came into my mind, though Slap Shot had never been made a film of. But so I said, no, Mr. Beer, I think if you employ me, I could help you much more here in Providence than I could down there. And he said, well, I'll think about it. So he asked me to come back about a month later, and he gave me the job. So I got lucky. That's what happened. I was just the right man at the right time.
Right, but in the end, you had the wherewithal to go down and get yourself in the building to begin with, and your whole career and life changed as a result of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Looking at your tenure while you worked for the team and eventually, again, becoming the general manager, while you were with the franchise, which is basically the duration of the 60s, a lot of big names came through. And again, talking about how tough it was to get a National Hockey League job. Ed Gaicomin, Hockey Hall of Famer, was a Providence Red for 5 or 6 years in the 60s before he got a break. Talk a little bit about Ed Gaicomin. What type of goaltender was he at that stage of his career? Did you think he had a Hall of Fame caliber career underway while he was in Providence?
Well, at that time, we had some pretty good goaltenders, and he was a backup to Bruce Campbell, who later starred with the Toronto Maple Leafs. But Bruce was a Boston-owned player, and so he was on loan to the Reds. And Eddie Jacobin was property of the Reds, so he had that to buckle with, and then finally he finally got the job, and he started to improve. And he was a really, really hard-working guy. Eddie was. He spent a lot of time not only in practices but after practices, having guys shoot at him. He worried about his angles very much so. He was a stand-up goalie, but he also could flop too and get up quickly. And you could just see him coming along beautifully. And when the time came, we were kind of pumping up his save average. The American Hockey League, I don't know what they would do in the NHL, but I had noticed in the Western Hockey League, with like Seattle and Portland and those teams, they all kept stats on the number of saves versus the number of shots. And I wonder why we don't do that. So we started to boost Eddie Jacomin's shots up and his save average, and started to publicize it quite a bit. And I think that the Rangers, although they had good scouts too, the Rangers had good scouts. The Rangers discovered it, and then they sat down and talked with Mr. Peary, and we got 4 players for him.
Oh, really?
And Eddie really, he deserved it, believe me. And he had a remarkably great career in the NHL too, with the Rangers and Detroit, and back with the Rangers. So. Great guy, really great goaltender.
Speaking of good guys in Rhode Island institutions, backup goaltender for many years in the 1960s, eventually playing for the Boston Bruins, Ross Brooks. Talk a little bit about Ross and what type of guy he was. Obviously, he still is close to the Rhode Island hockey community. He'll be at the reunion, as a matter of fact. Talk a little bit about Ross as a player and as a guy who became such a fixture in Rhode Island hockey.
Well, Ross Brooks is going to receive the Ray Ross Perseverance Award this year. It's a brand new award that we began last year in honor of Ray Ross, a guy who persevered with the Reds for many, many years. Who's now passed away. But Ross is going to get the Perseverance Award. You look back at his career, he spent 14 years in the minor leagues, 9 of them which he was with the Reds. And at the age of 36, finally got a chance to be an NHL goaltender as a backup to Jerry Cheevers in Boston. Milt Schmidt was very, very responsible for getting Ross the opportunity to go. Milt was the GM and of the Boston Bruins at the time. And so he hired Ross Brooks, and of course at age 36, he was, I think it was 1972, he made his mark, a backup goaltender. He won in backup duties, he won 37 They lost 7 and tied 6. And that's a remarkable record. And he had 14 straight wins. That was the longest, along with another ex-Bruin named Tiny Thompson. That was the longest straight win, consecutive win streak by any goaltender. And that's not only a Bruins record, but at the time it was an NHL record too. So he's a good guy, and he's a lot of fun to be with, and has a great sense of humor. I was looking at his biography the other day, and he said he missed 4 games because, and he's a jokester. He said he missed 4 games because he strained a muscle in his neck watching a pro football game. So I don't. But that's part of his Society for International Hockey Research on their website. They do. It's a great website, incidentally. It's IHR. They have all the good things and the funny things that a player does has done. So Russ is he was a great backup too here in Providence for a long time, beyond Marcel Paillet.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, he's a good one.
When you first started your work with the team, I believe it was the first year or the only year that Orland Kurtenbach played.
Right.
So he was one of the tough player, good player, real leader. Talk a little bit about Orland Kurtenbach and his contribution to the Reds the year that he was there.
Well, he has an interesting stat that year. He had 31 goals at the end of the season, I think. He scored 2 goals in the first half of the season, and he scored 29 in the second half of the season. It was just unbelievable. Big, strong. I always felt that when he went into the corners with the puck, he never came out without the puck. He was so strong, and he could fight. He was tough. He and Jimmy Bartlett had a fight when Jimmy was with the Bruins. We had an exhibition game in Providence, and they went at it pretty good. And Kurt was tough to beat. I think Jimmy got the short end of that fight because Kurt. He was so big, so strong, and a nice guy, really a good guy, yeah.
A lot of our listeners are fans of the World Hockey Association, and with that in mind, at this event, you've got a lot of ex-WHA players. Paul Stewart, Bobby Sheehan will be there.
Yep.
Yeah, but there's 2 guys that I always associate together, and that is former Cleveland Crusaders Ray Clearwater and Wayne Malloy. Just forgot Wayne's first name there for a second. But anyways, Ray and Wayne, they were both there while you were there. Good guys, and Ray went on to have a great career scouting in the National Hockey League. Talk a little bit about those 2, and they seem to be loyal returnees to the event every year.
Oh, they're great guys. I was privileged to have them play on our team when I was GM. They're very good guys. They were young and inexperienced at that point. And the one thing that I tried to do, and I guess I was successful at, is I brought in Adam Keller. I purchased his contract from I think it was from Montreal, and also Mo Mantha. Those are 2 experienced guys, and I had a talk with both those guys, and I said, we got these 2 really young defensemen. They're good kids. They're good hockey players too. They have a lot of potential, but if you could work with them from the defensive side, with both Mantha and Keller were defensemen, veteran defensemen, and they did the job, and the kids came along beautifully, and they both could carry the puck. They both could hit. I just thought that their progress was so much fun to watch, and they're very good. You're correct. They're very good. They've been very loyal to the Rhode Island Reds Heritage Society. We're hoping that both be able to come again this year.
Talking about the World Hockey Association, the NHL expansion, right when you become GM, which I believe is 67, 68 or so. Expansion, the league doubles in size. A few years later, the World Hockey Association is on the scene, and things are different. And, of course, the team leaves the Auditorium, goes to the Providence Civic Center. Can you talk a little bit about that time, because this very proud franchise that had that strong bond and big crowds all of a sudden is starting to struggle, as many minor league teams were. I think the AHL was down to 5 teams at one point in the mid-'70s. So talk a little bit about that transition from the heyday of Providence hockey to the years of struggle, since rebounded, of course, but there was a tough period there in the early 70s.
Well, I was not there in the early 70s. After we made the playoffs in 1967-68, I took a job in advertising, because I wasn't earning any money, and Margie and I had 4 kids. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of divorced from the game, but I did from a distance notice that the crowds weren't at the Civic Center were not what they had anticipated, and I asked a lot of questions around here, there, and everywhere, and they said it was the atmosphere to start off with. It was a different. You went to the old auditorium. You had a place to park in the neighborhood, on the streets, and then a couple of parking lots. And there you had to pay. You had to go downtown, fight the traffic, and pay. For someone to watch your car, practically, I guess. Mm-hmm. But the thing was that the atmosphere was different. And the fans that I've talked to who I expected that would be devout, continue their devotedness to the Reds, they stopped coming to the games because they said it just isn't the same. It's too big. Mm-hmm. It's too, and so that was a shame. Actually, that's how the team lost its franchise finally in 1967. 77, I guess it's 76, 77. That was the final episode of the Reds in Providence,
And they became...
It just wasn't the chicken wire wasn't there, the smoke wasn't. Right. All the things that you think would be negative, the fans were missing,
Yeah, well, that's what we talked about earlier, is the intimacy, the accessibility that the fans had to the players, and the community feeling. And I watched that documentary, When the Reds Rule the Roost. Very good documentary. You can find it online. It's on New England Sports Network periodically, narrated by ex-Bruins voice Fred Cusick. It's a wonderful film documentary, and it touches a lot on that relationship between fans and players. Of course, as things get bigger, they don't always get better, and that was spell the short-term doom for minor league hockey in Providence. As I said, now it's one of the most successful franchises in American Hockey League and has been for quite some time.
It is, because it's a new generation. The old generation just couldn't adapt to that. You could actually, if you're a kid, and a lot of kids did it. I did it between periods. You go down at the old auditorium, and you could just stand in the runway where the players came out. You could see them come out of you could actually touch them. A couple of guys like Topazini used to give me a little whack with his stick in the shins going out, and it was just the intimacy was there. It was really good, and you could talk to them. Okay, come on, Topper, we need a couple. Let's go. Come on. No, there's none of that at all. The fans do not have access to the players, and that is a shame. It really is.
No question. Speaking of your appreciation and your love and your history with Rhode Island hockey, you're also involved closely with the Rhode Island Hockey Hall of Fame, and I have to say, I didn't attend last year's event. I regret that. But from what I've seen and from what I've heard, the job you guys have done in building that quickly, these events, and the quality of people that you have coming back and getting inducted, it certainly looks to be extraordinarily impressive. I'll definitely go this year. But talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame and how that all got started and how it's going.
Well, protege of mine was Vin Cimini. He was a young student at Providence College at the time. Then I hired him to do the PR for the Reds when I was GM, because I had enough to do with that job that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And today, Vin is the guy. He is the chairman of the board of the Rhode Island Hockey Hall of Fame. It was through his inspiration and through his efforts that everything fell together last year. He worked tirelessly to organize it, to make sure that everything went well, that the selections, we had a selection committee, we had a board of directors, of which I was part at the time, and he just did a fantastic job. They're going to have their second annual induction ceremonies. It's up at the Twin River Resort, I guess you'd call it,
mm-hmm.
up in Lincoln. And it's going to be on September 6th of this year. It should be a grand occasion. Last year's was tremendously successful, and they've already announced some of the winners. And my high school hockey coach, Tom Eccleston, is an inductee into this year's, so I plan to go again. So,
absolutely.
But, the Rhode Island Reds Heritage Society, in partnership with Rhode Island Hockey, which is the youth hockey organization, that's the USA Hockey branch here in Rhode Island. Our Reds Heritage Society and Rhode Island Hockey were the two stalwarts that financed it and and helped it be successful along. But without Vince Cimini, it would not be there. It wouldn't be happening. No.
Well, kudos to him and everybody involved, because I was extremely impressed. That's not an easy undertaking, highly organized, well publicized, and I'm looking forward to going this year. Going back, Buster, to your event coming up in August, and we talked about it at the top of the show, August 2, 3, and 4, but particularly August 4th at Goddard State Park in Warwick. This is the 19th reunion. We've got about 26 players so far locked up. It's a great event for the fans. Now, our mutual friend and Boston Bruins legend, Rick Middleton, who was the American Hockey League Rookie of the Year in 73-74, playing in Providence, he'll be getting a special award this year as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, Nifty is going to get the Tops Award for this year. Tops Award is named in honor of the late, great Zelio Toppasini, undisputably the greatest hockey player ever to wear the Reds uniform over a long period. Mm-hmm. There was no one like Zelio Toppasini. He should have been in the NHL, and he just wasn't there. His brother Jerry, who made it to the NHL, he said to me a couple times, Zell's abilities were much greater than mine. He said, I couldn't skate like him. I couldn't think like him. But he said, I guess Jerry was a fighter, and Zelio was not a fighter. He was an artist. He painted the ice beautifully with his stick handling and his skating. He's getting that award. We have Noel Acciari, formerly of the Boston Bruins, who started last year, who's now with the Florida team. He signed as a free agent. He's getting the Rhode Island Native-Born Hockey Achievement Award, an annual award that we present. And for Noel, I've not met him, but I'm anxious to do so. He's all signed up, I guess, to come to us. And then, of course, Ross Brooks, we talked about him. So those are the three main awards that we'll be given. Oh, there is another one. The Fan of the Year award is going to go to Marge McKenney, Don McKenney's wife. We give this to people who go above and beyond to support the team, and Marge McKenney has been that kind of a person. Yeah.
Well, there certainly are a lot of great guests slated to be there. Master of Ceremonies, none other than the great Paul Stewart, always entertaining, and some players that will jump out to some of our listeners. My good friend, who I'll be seeing this weekend, Mike Corrigan will be there, Pete Demers, Jack Ferreira, who was one of the early people in the New England Whalers and the World Hockey Association, went on to a great NHL career there. Ron Garwasiuk. I'm sorry, I keep messing that up, but he went on to play in the World Hockey Association with the LA Sharks. Bobby Leduc, of course, who had an excellent career in the WHA, coaching. Actually, he was the coach of the team that had recent NHL Hockey Hall of Fame inductee Vaclav Nedomansky of the Toronto Toros, along with Frank Mahovlich. He'll be there. Don McKenney, of course, Howie Menard, who played in the National Hockey League, and Heartland Monahan, former Washington Capital. We talked about Wayne Malloy and Ray Clearwater. Andre Paloffi, of course, another great name for the American Hockey League, also played for the Whalers. And Bobby Sheekat Sheehan, the swift skating and elusive centerman. So he'll be there. The cost is $40 for adults, $15 for children. You're going to not only get a chance to meet these players, get autographs, you're going to hear some great stories that you won't hear anywhere else. Buffet, dinner, music raffle, silent auctions of hockey memorabilia. It is a great day. I'm really looking forward to it. Am I missing anything, Buster, about the reunion weekend?
I think we missed one thing: how people get tickets. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Either you're going to be able to easily contact Mal Goldenberg, and Mal is at the following email address. It's Mal at rmcri.com, or better still, call him at 401-864-6191. I'll repeat that one, 401-864-6191. And he'll handle tickets, reservations, and make it easy for everybody.
And that's important because tickets will not be sold at the gate.
Correct.
So
Correct.
You don't want to be left out. A great afternoon. This is the 19th annual reunion, and it will be another great day. It never disappoints. People who go have a great time. I'll be there this year, and we look forward to it. We look forward to seeing you, Buster, live and in color on that weekend as well. And wanted to say thank you so much for reliving memories of a great time in hockey history here in the area. And again, look forward very much to seeing you on the weekend of August 3 and 4.
Well, Mark, I want to thank you for. I really enjoyed the session, and I hope to meet you there and a lot of the listeners that are tuning in this afternoon.
Buster, thanks so much. We'll look forward to talking to you soon.
Okay, Mark.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. In episode 17 of the PHA podcast, we talk with Rick Middleton about his 1973-74 season in Providence, his first pro season, 84 points in 63 games, and he won the Rookie of the Year award. And he has some funny stories as he recalls his days in Rhode Island.
Well, that was my first time away from home, as I didn't have to move out in junior. So, it was exciting. I was getting paid some pretty good money, so I didn't have to worry about money. There was 10 single guys living in an apartment building. I had a roommate, Andre Paloffi, who was another member of the team, older than me. And as a matter of fact, I went to the Reds reunion this summer just because Andre was going to be there. I hadn't seen him in 45 years.
Wow.
He married a Providence girl, so he looked just the same. He looked great. So it's great now to really go back and reminisce and meet people and guys that you played with, maybe even just for a short time. My memories of that year are, fairly clear. So, a couple of road trips we had. And the one game I remember the most is really in the finals. We went to the Calder Cup finals that year, and we were down 3-0 with the fourth game in Providence, and we went into overtime. I scored in overtime to win, and I turn around. I swear this is my memory of it. There was about 3 guys on the ice to congratulate me. I'm like, where did everybody go? Well, as I found out later, that most guys in the American Hockey League have already got their U-Hauls all packed up, ready to go back home. They didn't really want to go back to Hershey for Game 5.
That's funny.
So, it was maybe it was more than 3, but to me, it was a memory that I remembered. So there couldn't have been that many on the ice, But,
right.
Taught me a little bit about the American League.
The one guy I always remember, Larry Sacharuk. He had 27 goals on defense that year, half a year.
Boom, boom. We called him boom, boom. He had a hard slap shot. But I always joked with him that, the safest place would be in front of the net because.
Right. Yeah, he could.
But no, Larry, myself, and a guy by the name of Jerry Teeple, God rest his soul, he passed away at a young age. We kind of were that year. The 3 of us hung out together, so we were good friends. And I've only run into him once since. I was at the All-Star game. I think it was in Colorado in like '99 or something. And the guy comes out to the lobby to get me. He goes, "A friend of yours is in the bar." So I walked in. Who's in there but Larry Sacharuk? I hadn't seen him since '73. I don't think, maybe '74 when he was up with the Rangers. But
right.
We kind of lost track of each other. So it's great to see him, and I haven't seen him since. But
right.
He was doing good.
Thanks for listening to the Pro Hockey Alumni Podcast, the voice of hockey legends. Just a reminder to please consider giving the show a rating and or review on Apple Podcasts. The link is in the show notes. These ratings and reviews help us become a lot more visible and make the show more accessible to hockey fans everywhere. I personally read all the reviews and greatly appreciate them all. If you have thoughts or suggestions for the show, you can contact us through our website at prohockeyalumni.org, or be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Pro Hockey Alumni. Thanks for listening.